we start with our professional development session underwritten by Lincoln Learning Solutions. Our presenter will discuss hate crimes, how prevalent they are right here in our area, and how the Pennsylvania State Police goes about investigating and prosecuting them. He is Trooper Ismail El-Gomra, the Central Heritage Affairs Liaison Officer, a position that falls within the Pennsylvania State Police Equality and Inclusion Office. He was born in Morocco and came to the United States as part of the Diversity Immigrant Visa Program. Trooper El-Gomra has worked 8 years in the private sector and more than 8 more as a law enforcement officer. His unit is primarily responsible for training cadets and troopers on subjects such as the history of policing, cultural awareness, racial profiling awareness, and implicit bias. They are also involved in building relationships within historically underserved communities and monitoring, preventing, and responding to hate, bias-related crimes. The unit works with municipal police departments throughout the Commonwealth and provides them with free of charge trainings on those subjects upon request. Let's welcome Pennsylvania State Trooper Ismail El-Gomra.
Hello everyone. Thank you very much for having me. I am Trooper Ismail El-Gomra of the Pennsylvania State Police Heritage Affairs Section within Equality and Inclusion Office. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that my unit and the Pennsylvania State Police Heritage Affairs Section and I are more than excited to be involved in the annual celebration day of the man, the legend, who dedicated his life to fight inequality and to bring love and healing to America, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And what a better way to start celebrating this event other than with a quote from the man himself. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. These are some powerful words. Next, on our journey, I want to share with you a video that was presented by the commander of our unit, Lieutenant William Slayton. At the time of the video, he was a sergeant. However, the video gives a glimpse inside what we do and what we are involved with as a unit. So let's watch it together.
Across the country, all eyes are focused here on Baltimore, now with palpable unrest as the city begins its first night of curfew after violent clashes between police and protesters.
A Delaware County couple says they were racially profiled by Pennsylvania State Police.
At least 11 people are dead and 6 more wounded after a man walked into a synagogue near downtown Pittsburgh with an assault rifle.
The East Pittsburgh officer who shot and killed Rose has been arrested this morning. He's been charged with criminal homicide.
Outside a Pennsylvania courthouse Tuesday, Arlene Figueroa reacted to the charge against the 33-year-old officer who killed her daughter's father.
Large crowds of protesters angry over a deadly police shooting shut down a major highway near Pittsburgh overnight.
There will be a citywide curfew.
Hello, my name is Sergeant William Slayton, and I am the commander of the Pennsylvania State Police Heritage Affairs Section. The Heritage Affairs Section within our department's Equality and Inclusion Office works with municipal, state, federal agencies, local governments, and community organizations in responding to hate and bias crimes and incidents. Hate and bias crimes have a long-lasting effect on society and can damage amicable relationships within communities. In addition to responding to hate crimes, I also command our state police tension response team. The purpose of tension response teams are to assist PSP personnel and local law enforcement agencies with incidents of civil tension. An incident of civil tension is one that has caused or may cause concern from members of the public. It is also a situation that has caused or may cause unrest within the community. Lastly, as the commander of the Heritage Affairs section, I am responsible for teaching Pennsylvania State Police cadets various subjects that include cultural diversity awareness, racial profiling awareness, as well as implicit bias. I also provide training to outside law enforcement agencies and many other subjects upon request. Since its inception, the Heritage Affairs section has played a vital role within the Pennsylvania State Police, a role that serves as both an ally to victims of hate crimes and a role that serves as a mediator between community members and law enforcement representatives during contentious situations. Historically, the Heritage Affairs section has been represented by one section commander. Their efforts were supported by Pennsylvania State Police community services officers as well as other Pennsylvania State Police personnel. However, as of this year, the Heritage Affairs section has expanded the level of service it provides to the citizens of this Commonwealth. The Heritage Affairs section is now staffed by me as the section commander and 3 Heritage Affairs liaison officers, all of whom come from very diverse backgrounds that better reflect the diversity within this Commonwealth. Moreover, both I and all of the Heritage Affairs liaison officers were members of various underserved communities at one point in our lives. Underserved communities that are very similar to, or in some cases worse than the ones that we frequently serve and engage with. This gives us a unique perspective into the contentious issue, one from the view of a police officer and another from the view of a member of that community. As we enter the new year, I anticipate the Heritage Affairs section expanding even further to better serve our communities.
As the need rises to build strong relationships with historically underserved communities and to fight hate crimes, our leaders and command staff within the Pennsylvania State Police moved toward expanding our unit. Now we are 4 full-time Heritage Affairs liaison officers, each one of us assigned to a quadrant of the state, plus the commander. That's our commander, Lieutenant William Slayton. That's me, Trooper Ismail Gomra, Central Halo. And if you wonder what's Halo, it's just an abbreviation of Heritage Affairs Liaison Officer. Trooper Amanda Concha, Northeast Halo. Corporal Aaron Allen, Western Halo. Corporal Timothy Green, Southeast Halo. Each one of us came from a different background with different experience in life. We all brainstorm to bring positivity to the Commonwealth, to the citizens of the Commonwealth, and to our department, and to fight hate crimes. A little bit about myself. I came to the United States as an immigrant. I served 8 years in private sector, then more than 8 years in law enforcement. As a trooper, I served in Troop H, Chambersburg, and Troop H, Carlisle. I learned a lot from serving in both stations and had the opportunity to investigate numerous criminal acts. While I was serving in Troop H, Carlisle, I had the opportunity to join the Heritage Affairs section as a part-time, which later became a full-time position. And that's about me. Now, let's talk a little bit about our unit, the Heritage Affairs section. The Heritage Affairs section within Equality Inclusion Office, we work with municipal, state, and federal agencies, local governments, and community organizations in responding to hate and bias crimes and incidents. We do also work internally within our internal sections, such as the Recruitment Services section and the Equal Employment Opportunity. In a nutshell, we do work closely with the internal and external entities to fight hate crimes, to prosecute the offenders, to empower the victims, to enhance community policing, and to assist in attracting and recruiting qualified candidates from diverse backgrounds to reflect the diverse background of the communities that we serve. What you see here are multiple pictures from some of the incidents we responded to. For example, the Tree of Life Synagogue massacre in Pittsburgh, a police-involved shooting in South Whitehall, and so on. We are usually involved from the moment we are notified until the investigation is closed or reaches its final disposition. We are involved with teaching our cadets and troopers. We train on subjects like implicit bias and history of policing. Also, we help them by teaching them ways to build positive impacts and relationships within historically underserved communities. As we all know, hate and racism is not a new phenomenon. Years before I was born, Dr. King was peacefully fighting for the right of African Americans. At the time, multiple states enforced what's known till today as Jim Crow laws and imposed legal punishments for consorting with other members. There were segregative laws, and we're going to see some example of those. As we all know, Jim Crow laws mandated racial segregation within all public sectors and facilities. Some of the signs that you see here on the side of my screens were signs that were displayed during that era. You might find them outside of restaurants or outside of town. These segregation laws, for example, affected multiple areas within the life of especially African Americans. For example, the education sector. African Americans did not have the same opportunity to attend the same schools and to study using the same books. And we know how that can negatively affect families and subsequently a whole generation. Others, even hospital entrances, lunch counters. African American may not be able to sit down in the same area as a white counterpart. If that African American was even allowed to enter that restaurants. Other laws affected cohabitation, marriage. A person of color was not able to marry another person from another race. Even toilet facilities, buses, and so forth. Especially when we're talking about buses or transit system in general, there were multiple incidents throughout the history. One of the famous incidents is the famous Montgomery Bus Boycott. Miss Rosa Parks refused to relinquish her bus seat to a white man and subsequently was arrested. This incident presented the opportunity to ignite the fight against segregation laws. The NAACP and the Women Political Council met at the basement of Dr. King Church, which he had offered. They then drafted a demand for the bus company. To secure these demands, no African American would ride the bus on Monday. Knowing that blacks comprised 90% of the transit system passengers, this boycott remained for more than a year and was successful. This boycott caused Montgomery transit system and the city business to suffer a heavy financial toll. On December 20th, 1956, the United States Supreme Court ruled that the law enforcing segregation on public transit were unconstitutional. So why history? Why our unit is focused on history? The simple answer is understanding the history of policing in America and the civil rights movements allowed us to serve in many occasions as mediators between law enforcement and community members involved in contentious situations. We came from different backgrounds. We have different upbringing. In addition, understanding the history of policing and race in America allowed us to see things and to shed light on the issues and see them in different perspectives. The perspective of the community that we serve and the perspective of a police officer. So we are more than 50 years from the death of Dr. King, and hate is still prevalent in the United States. So just to share with you some stats here. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, in 2019 there were 940 hate groups in the US, 36 of which are in Pennsylvania. And we know that there was a surge of hate groups activities during 2020. And there were different groups that floated to the surface, not only in Pennsylvania, but nationwide. Some of them openly advocate violence, terrorism, and to start a race war. To share with you just some traditional groups here. Keystone State Skinheads, Nation Socialist Movement, Aryan Strike Force, and the Ku Klux Klan. These are traditionally very known hate groups, but there are so many more. Just to share with you how we compile data for statistics. There is a program called Uniform Crime Reporting, or UCR. This federal program compiles official data on crimes within the United States. These crime statistics are public to increase transparency and to help with crime analysis. So, law enforcement agencies within the United States submit their reportings directly or indirectly to the FBI. And that's how we get all the statistics on hate crime or other crimes. So I used UCR to extract some data. Here I want to share with you 2019 hate crime statistics. The pie chart represents the number of participating agencies. So the nationwide is 15,588 participating agencies, and you can see that. Versus in Pennsylvania, the number of participating agencies were 1,424, which is a good statistics if you look at it. It's almost 10%. Those are good numbers of the participating agencies within this program. Now, the agencies submitting hate crime incident reports. We see nationwide is 2,172. Comparison, in Pennsylvania, 15. It's less than 1%. Now, let's look at the number of hate incidents reported. As we can see, nationwide, there were 7,314. In comparison, Pennsylvania had 41 hate crime incidents. That is almost 0.5%. So the verdict here is that hate crimes generally underreported. Underreported in Pennsylvania and nationwide. Usually investigators base their decisions on certain characteristics that we're going to talk about later on. But the other reason is that the victim usually are reluctant to report the offense, and sometimes they are hesitant, thinking that law enforcement might not appropriately classify the offense as a hate crime. So we are asking the victim to help us by reporting the incidents. So before we get to our next section of why people commit hate crimes, Dr. King pretty much laid down the issue and the solution. People fail to get along because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they have not communicated with each other. So that's pretty much the reason. People need to sit down and to engage in knowing each other. Today, we're going to speak about 4 categories of people that commit hate crimes and the reason why. The first one, thrill-seeking offenders. Next, defensive offenders, retaliatory offenders, and mission offenders. So let's start with thrill-seeking offenders. These hate crimes are often committed by young, disorderly, sometimes drunk men with mayhem in their mind. They may spray paint, ethnic slurs on a car or a vehicle, may even assault a vulnerable victim who may appear different to them. No real reason other than the thrill of the act. They think society does not care about the victim, or even that they may applaud their assault. Next are defensive offenders. Usually these attackers see themselves as defending their turf, their neighborhood, their workplace, their norm, culture, religion, or even the country. They usually target specific victims and justify their crimes as necessary to keep threats at bay. They show little to no remorse for their victims. In history, not even only for African Americans, but even for immigrants. They were in town that they were thinking that Italians, Germans, Irish, Catholics coming to their towns are going to bring issues, problems, diseases, and so forth. These defenders show little, as I said, to no remorse for their attacks and believe that most, if not all, society support them, but they are too afraid to act usually. Next are retaliatory offenders. Usually these type of hate crimes are often seen as revenge within response to potential slight or other hate crimes or terrorism. These type of crimes usually will spike after a criminal event or act. The criminals that committed these acts act alone and target a member of the racial, ethnic, religious group who they believe committed the original crime. After the 9/11, for example, hate crimes against Arabs and Muslims rose by 1,600%. A similar spike occurred after the Paris attack in 2015. Now, with mission offenders. These are the deadliest. They consider themselves as crusaders, often for racial or religious cause. Their mission is total war against members of individual race or religion. They are often linked to a group that share their racist views. Mission offenders usually will write lengthy manifestos explaining their views, visit websites steeped in hate speech and violent imagery. These mission offenders believe that the system is rigged against them. And what we can see, what appears, is that most of these groups and individuals or their propaganda starts in a virtual world, whether mission offenders or others. There is a big scapegoat theory behind this. Most of these hate groups direct their anger and frustration outward and blame others, other religion, other race, ethnicity, immigrants, or whatever there is, for their predicaments. Now, what if a hate crime occurs? Law enforcement must take crime seriously and conduct a thorough investigation. Law enforcement must quickly and publicly denounce the crime. Law enforcement should attend community events meant to build support after the crime. As we know, hate crime have both physical and psychological impacts on the victim. Hate crimes can victimize a whole community. Let me give you an example. So somebody spray painted an N-word on a black church. What happened? It's not just the attendant of that church that will feel offended, but the whole community when that spread within that community. So it does touch more than just the targeted victim. We have to protect the victims. We have to send a strong signal of zero tolerance to the offenders. These crimes can create tensions within communities and negatively impact the cohesion of our society. And back to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As law enforcement, we have an obligation to protect the victims. This country will not be a good place for any of us to live in unless we make it a good place for all of us to live in. So, what can a defendant be charged with? We have to make this society better for everybody to live in. So, according to Pennsylvania Criminal Code, Criminal Law, Title 18, there is a charge called ethnic intimidation. Let's define the offense. A person commits the offense of ethnic intimidation if the condition with malicious intent toward the race, color, religion, or national origin of another individual or group of individuals, he committed an offense under any provision of this article under Chapter 33. I'll expand on that later on. What this means is that the charge of ethnic intimidation for law enforcement to charge with, we have to decide that an incident is hate motivated against race, color, religion, or national origin. Ethnic intimidation can be charged for each underlying offense, and each grading will be one grade higher than underlying offense. And I'm going to give you an example. Well, you see here on the screen that all part of underlying offenses. So, for example, take Chapter 27, assault. Under assaults, go to 2701, which is simple assault. So, if the underlying offense is simple assault, and in some cases it becomes misdemeanor of the second degree. If there is that malicious intention, or we say, like against race, for example, now we can add an additional charge of ethnic intimidation and it will be graded 1 degree higher, which is misdemeanor of the first degree. So we have that simple assault, we say second degree, and ethnic intimidation is going to be misdemeanor of the first degree. Now we can go, for example, another example, 2709 under Chapter 27 assaults, and that's going to be harassment. In most cases, harassment is a summary violation. What that means by summary violations is those violations in Pennsylvania that you get a citation, or some call it tickets. You get your ticket, you go your own merry way. So harassment, most of it, is summary citations. Now, if it was a hate crime, like somebody kicked somebody just the reason of the race, pushing is a harassment. So the offender pushed the victim. Now we have a harassment. The victim is a different race than the offenders. The offenders pushed the victim because the victim was black, Hispanic, or whatever the case may be. Now we can tackle an additional charge, which is enhancement ethnic intimidation. Now that ethnic intimidation will become misdemeanor of the third degree. So that's what I'm saying, is it's an enhancement charge. So it becomes a grade higher than the original underlying offense. And these are what you see on your screen, some of the underlying offenses. Here are more: kidnapping, sexual offenses, abortion, arson, criminal trespass under burglary, and other criminal intrusions. So to show all these, all you need to know, if there is a hate crime, please report it. Police will distinguish if there is an ethnic intimidation, can be an addition to it or not. What about if somebody attacks house of faith, for example, putting a swastika on synagogue or putting some kind of slurs on any house of faith, synagogue, a church, a mosque. In Pennsylvania, that becomes institutional vandalism. To define it, a person commits the offense of institutional vandalism if he knowingly desecrates, as defined in Section 5509, or vandalizes, defaces, or otherwise damages. And I will draw your attention to number 1 here. Any church, synagogue, or other facility or place used for religious worship or other religious purposes. So that becomes a charge for that. And usually it is a felony. Even what we saw, there are some demographics that are not protected by state law. And I want to say is, even though if there is any kind of bias incidents toward these demographics, they can always contact us. We are always happy to assist because we have too many resources. They may be protected under the federal law or civil or any sort of things. Just please contact us. So some of these demographics are elderly, LGBTQ, and disabled. And as I said earlier, we cannot complete this journey without the wisdom of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. In the next, so I hope that video put a smile on your face to continue our journey celebrating today. We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. That's again Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So how can we move forward? So how we can move forward? 1, by sharing love with communities we serve. It is the policy of the Pennsylvania State Police to be committed to the enhancement of community relations by using a proactive approach in dealing with potential civil tension and hate and bias crimes. We have to educate against racism. We have to dispel rumors, neutralize propaganda. We have to promote integration and fight discrimination. We have to involve with communities, community events. We are involved with multiple faith and community organizations. We work tirelessly toward building better relationships with minority organizations and local community leaders. If we don't know about the other, we will always stay in fear. By just knowing about other communities, other people, we can defeat stereotypes. Just being around our children, the children of today are adults of tomorrow. Some of these may be the leaders of our society. So by taking care of our generation and taking care of our next generation, we take care of our society and our future. Just being around kids, allowing them to visit our cars, to touch them, it makes their days. You can see the smiles all over their faces. Because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. And we don't want them to be scared from police especially at early age. We want them to know that we are just a human. We can laugh and cry. Human nature. It's being around them. Give them that opportunity, that excitement to touch our tools and play with light and siren. They'll love that. Hey, you got any events? Welcome, help you out. Welcome, get involved. We like that. As I said before, we are involved in teaching law enforcement officers about other communities, culture, the history. And as of 2020, pandemic, the social and economic issues that our nation faced, we start moving into Zoom, Google platforms, and all that. And that's what you see in the pictures. We can involve with the community in any type of way. We have no issues. I'm glad I'm in this section, and I love what I do. So how can we move forward? Engagement, knowing about each other, interaction with individuals usually will erase stereotypes. Just sitting down with people, learning about other communities, other cultures, because we all belong to the same nation, to the same society. Different people, different cultures, different minority groups or different groups in that matter. Society is like a puzzle game. If you take one puzzle piece, it's incomplete. So all we have to come together to fight hate and racism. So one of the things is we need to educate ourselves and learn about others. We need to foster new relationships, work to diversify our groups within work or outside. And the golden rule, treat others the way that you would like to be treated. If it doesn't seem right, it is not right. At the end of the day, we're all human beings with different cultures, different backgrounds, different ethnicities. We're all equal. These are some resources that I want to just share with you. Some of them that I used for this presentation as well. The Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General, we do work with them. We do bounce ideas between each other. They do investigate hate crimes as well. PHRC, the same thing. We're always in communication, talk about events, we learn from each other. Southern Poverty Law Center is a pretty good resource for hate and hate crimes, and they have like a map, interactive map that you can actually see your state, hate groups within your state, and more information about hate in general. Anti-Defamation League is a wealth of knowledge as well for hate crimes, especially anti-Semitic and others. And we do interact with them like ADL and NAACP as well. I hope this presentation echoes the commitment of our unit and our department as a whole, the Pennsylvania State Police, in fighting hate crimes and standing by the victim of hate crimes or any other crime in that matter. Just remember, we're all human beings. We are more than happy to sit down with anyone. If you have an event, please call us. We'll be glad to attend. Please let us know, and we'll be there. I thank everyone that assisted with this and make this happen. And thank you very much.